Have you suddenly developed food allergies, anxiety, skin rashes, insomnia, palpitations, or reactions to things you've previously tolerated? But what if this isn't your body being broken? What if it's actually one of your important immune cells sounding the alarm too often? Hi, I'm Dr. Jen. I'm a double board certified physician, and today we're going to do part one in a series on mast cell and mast cell activation syndrome, known as MCAS. This happens all the time. I'm always hearing about mast cells now. It's the new buzzword. And I have been treating symptoms from mast cell for my whole career and have been seeing this in my office. A lot of the times we like to give names like POTS to this or endometriosis or different autoimmune skin rashes. But really, we need to get to the root cause of why is your body giving these symptoms. And I've always said symptoms are a good thing. Symptoms are a gift from God telling us that something is wrong in our body. If we keep ignoring these symptoms, or we're gaslit that they're normal, or we're told on TV that we're supposed to have these symptoms, then we can't get to the root cause and then we will have disease. I'm also seeing a lot that conventional medicine names these symptoms as diseases. And it's like, no, that you can't like name a symptom a disease. That's like not a real thing. Even migraines, that is naming a symptom of a root cause. Okay. Like migraines, like estrogen dominance, trigger point problems, being on nasty birth control, all these different things. So that's my job. And that is one of the favorite things I do when I'm working with patients. So basically, let's talk about mast cells. What are mast cells? Mast cells, they are actually specialized immune cells. They're not just allergy cells, even though when we think of how do we treat allergies, we want to stop and destroy, mast cells. But that's the problem. Like, we are just treating the symptom. Like allergies, for example. Why do we have food allergies? Well, because our gut health is not optimal and healthy. Why do we have seasonal allergies? Well, gut health and other things. So we have to still get to the root cause. So let's not call them just allergy cells. Let's call them what they are. They are immune cells in our body, they're neuroimmune cells, they're hormone responsive cells, they're environmental sensing cells. So if you were a mast cell, what would be your primary question that you're asking? So the primary question is my environment safe? Because if it's not safe, the mast cell is going to go into action. Think of them as like a security guard for your body. And if something seems suspicious, they're going to be on high alert. And then if something actually happens, they are going to go to that area and look and think about security guards. Like some are more active than others, especially if they work versus like a small town where everyone knows everyone and nothing's happening. And so, these mast cells, they can become falsely alarmed, and we'll talk about that later. So where are mast cells located? And this is the very interesting part. They're actually located wherever the body interacts or interfaces with the environment. So think of the skin. The skin is honestly such a good sign to me that something is going wrong in the body. So when we have skin rashes, what do people do? They go to a dermatologist, and we've always joked as, doctors, medical doctors, dermatology is the hardest specialty to get into. And you have to be at the top of your class and everything. And it's funny because if it's wet, make it dry. If it's dry, make it wet, right? I'm sure we've all been to a dermatologist and they just give us steroid cream and we're like, okay, thanks. That's just suppressing my immune system. And that's what steroids do. So think about it. Put a steroid on a rash, it's going to get better for a short time. And then it usually comes back if you don't fix the root cause. Sometimes it doesn't come back. That's because the root cause was like a temporary thing. This is why when we see people with chronic rashes, such as eczema, autoimmune rashes, I've treated so many of these at my office where people are like, I know this isn't working. They have a gut feeling. They have the Holy Spirit telling them like, this is not right. This is not right. There's something deeper. Really cool tangent case study. When I had my brick and mortar practice in Ohio, I was the only integrative doctor in the area. And I just got like all of these cases. And this was before integrative and functional medicine like exploded. So I just got all these cases. Kind of everyone went to me. It was kind of cool. I kind of got a little bit of everything. And this gentleman came in, hard worker. He was in his 60s and he would get horrible rashes and then also asthma. And he was like, I'm not getting shots for this. Like, I know something else is coming on. And I did a really good history on him, and he was going down in the ground to work on some water thing like at his mother's house, and it had so much mold in it, and I had to like dig a little bit and talk to him about that. So we figured out like he had a major mold exposure that was causing this mast cell histamine release, causing asthma, causing the skin rashes, causing him to have to get a biologic injection to stop the immune response, to stop that histamine response. So what happened? We treated him for mold. We actually got some testing and verified that, made sure his body knew he was safe again. And then he didn't get rashes or asthma anymore, and he got off the biologic medicine. Yeah, I know I'm not very popular with these insurance companies and these pharmaceutical companies that love to sell these $1,000 a month biologics. I'm gonna help the patient get to the root cause. I'm gonna get the patients back into the God-given homeostasis of our body and how our body is supposed to operate so we can do more things for the kingdom. Amen, right? Okay, so skin, think about this. Rashes, hives, mold, hives and mold. Oh my goodness. Rosacea, itching, flushing, even that flushing. A lot of the times this is activated by warm showers. If someone gets rashes after warm showers, that can be an indication that they have a mast cell problem. So mast cells are located in the gut. So think of food sensitivities, think of esophageal reflux, think about IBS, diarrhea, nausea, all of these symptoms. Now, this is like the parasite outbreak, the cyclospora, like some people are getting it worse. And I'm like, well, that's because your gut is already inflamed. And then when you get this in there, your immune system, your mast cells are going to freak out and produce diarrhea and nausea, and you're going to feel horrible. So we got to calm down the immune response. We got to fix the tight junction. We got to fix the gut health. And we look at airways. This can be asthma, full blown asthma. And we know that a lot of good treatments for asthma or supporting that, it can look like omega 3s, which help with cytokines, which we'll talk about why that matters with mast cells, asthma and wheezing, congestion, nasal congestion. That is a big one, especially with Marcons and mold, and that has to be treated. And that is overlooked a lot. So that's another thing. So think of airways, blood vessels. This is POTS syndrome. So blood vessels and histamine, and you can call it MCAS, you can call it all that, you can call it whatever you want, but it has a root cause. Most POTS I see have some mold going on, something in there. And we'll talk more maybe in part 2 or part 3 about like why, like why it's so hard. So make sure you subscribe so you can listen to part 2 and part 3. Now, the blood vessels. So this is going to cause a vasodilation or an opening of the blood vessels. So you're going to get flushing, dizziness, tachycardia, and these are all like in that POTS, hypostatic ortho hypotension when you're laying down and getting up too fast. This is all because of that blood vessel MCAS relationship. And then we also see some brain and nervous system responses. And this is where you get that anxiety, and you get that anxiety with the palpitations. So anxiety and brain fog, trouble sleeping, because as we'll talk about later, you are more hyper vigilant. You're more awake when you're having this neuro response to the mast cells, because it is a neuroendocrine response and mast cells are part of that system. So all of these brain fog too, because there's inflammation going on in there, those cytokines being released. So think about mast cells. As I said, they're like the security guard for the body. They're not all bad, but they're bad when they're overreactive. Just like anything, when we overreact, it's not It's just not good. So, why do we have mast cells? Like, why did God make mast cells, okay, in our body? We know that everything is good and has a reason. Everything that God made is good, right? So, normal functions is helps defend against parasites. Parasites are real, they are a real thing. And when we have parasites that are not treated, then that becomes a big problem. Isn't low enough, then we are more susceptible to parasites. And so many people have poor stomach acid. Mast cells help recruit other immune cells to come. Like if you're a security guard and something's wrong, you're going to recruit more people to help control that situation, help increase blood flow. We need good blood flow. Anything that has stagnation with blood is not good. We need good gut blood flow and oxygenation. So this can help wound healing. So think about a good example is if you live in Tennessee until we moved to Tennessee, they are kind of terrifying. I have not gotten bit by one, so that's good. And we have little fake dragonflies now, like everywhere, because supposedly that they don't like dragonflies, red wasp. I didn't think they were scared of anything, but there we go. So you get stung by a red wasp, okay? And what happens? There's inflammation, there's swelling, there's increased blood flow, there's warmth. That is mast cell, that is histamine. One of the things it releases is histamine. It's going there, it's bringing attention to the problem to help healing. Now, it's not fun. It doesn't feel good, but that's why it does that. Mast cells also help signal danger. So that bug bite, that's danger. Something's going on. We got to bring you to safety. And then helping communicate with the nervous system. So all these are good protective characteristics of a mast cell. So how they actually work, okay? So detecting possible danger becomes activated and then it degranulates. So it releases all these mediators. This is mast cell degranulation. And there are many things that help stabilize mast cells so they don't like degranulate and like freak out as much, right? So it's like stabilizing something. When you're packaging something, you wrap bubble wrap around it so it doesn't break. You're like stabilizing those things. So that's where some of the mechanisms that we'll talk about later come in. So what is inside these mast cells? What's inside that? So think of a balloon, you have confetti in there, you pop it and everything kind of spills out. So there's different kind of mediators in mast cells. There's immediate ones and histamine is the big one. And then we have tryptase, heparin and TNF alpha. TNF alpha is an inflammatory cytokine. But these are immediate. Remember, it's like going to the site with immediate danger. It's protective. Okay. So I guess we should think of mast cells like they're sweet. They're trying to protect us. But because we live in a broken world, all this signaling gets messed up and they get too hyper like a puppy. Right. And then they also have delayed mediators, further cytokines, prostaglandins, leukotrienes, and growth factors. Okay. So these mast cells are really, they're trying to protect us. We might even think of them as sweet, but sometimes too much sweet is bad. Like if you eat too much cake, right? That's bad. Okay. So let's talk about histamine, which everyone like gets a bad name, histamine. So histamine by itself is not bad. It's information. So histamine, technically, we can think of it as a neurotransmitter. We can think of it as an immune messenger, an inflammatory mediator, and even a circadian regulator sometimes. So histamine functions include wakefulness. So think about when you have a histamine response. I mean, a lot of people that struggle with overactive histamine problems and MCAS, they don't sleep well, right? Because it's a neuroendocrine. It's providing that wakefulness and alertness because it thinks your body something bad's going to happen, so it doesn't want you sleeping. Immune defense, blood flow, the stomach acid production, okay? Because we want there to be stomach acid to protect against all those parasites and everything coming in. Mucus, because that is a defense, producing all this mucus to get whatever is bad out. Appetite regulation, then also some hormone signaling. So histamine, once again, it's saying, hey, like something is going on here. We need attention. It's really interesting because we're going to talk about like where the histamine receptors are. There's multiple different types of histamine receptors and they do different things. So like histamine 1 blockers and histamine 2 are like the main ones, like where medications are kind of made. So H1 receptors are found in the skin, the brain, the lungs, and blood vessel. So these symptoms are the itching and hives, can cause some anxiety, insomnia, and flushing. So this is Benadryl. Okay. So when you take Benadryl, and then there are some more advanced histamine, H1 response receptors. Okay. So it helps block histamine's response because the receptors, when histamine binds, is going to create these symptoms. Okay. Does that make sense? So we have the mast cells that are activating and degranulating and spilling histamine. And then we're talking about histamine and then the receptors. Okay. So H2 receptors, this is going to be your protein pump inhibitor, but your pepsid is going to be an H2 blocker. So this is found in the stomach, heart, blood vessels. And the symptoms for this, if you have overactive histamine, is going to be reflux. You get palpitations, increased heart rate. So when someone comes in for an allergic reaction, okay, histamine is going crazy. This is anaphylactic type reaction. In the ER, we give them IV Benadryl, H1. We give them IV Pepsid, H2. We give them steroids to shut down those other cytokines and stuff that were in the degranulation, right? We monitor them. We make sure there's not another delayed response later. I mean, this is like bread and butter, right? And then sometimes we give them epinephrine. That's why you have the EpiPen, because we are trying to, reverse this overactive hypervigilant response. Histamine receptors H3 are found in the brain and the nervous system. This helps for wakefulness and neurotransmitter regulation, attention. Now, if this is overactive, you could have brain fog and insomnia again, and that hypervigilance. And the brain fog is really bad with some patients. It's really bad. H4 is found in immune cells, the gut, and the bone marrow. So this is where you're getting more of the chronic inflammation. You just don't know why you're inflamed all the time. And this can also affect your immune system recruitment. And this is just allergic disease, like this chronic allergies that people have. So they're also covered with receptors. So they're kind of like listening for everything. So think of a balloon that has like little areas and receptors, and those receptors are going to tell the balloon to self degranulate. Okay. And this is their receptors they have are constantly gathering information from the environment. They're looking for IgE, which that is an allergic immunoglobulin. They're looking for histamine. They're getting that feedback loop. They're looking for cytokines and stress hormones. They're also like seeing what's going on in the environment with cortisol, mold, like everything. So constantly kind of listening. So then we go into MCAS. So remember I said that a lot of conventional medicine likes to name symptoms as diseases, which is fine because then we have something to call it, I guess. But there's always a root cause. There's always a root cause. Like with my patients, we just keep digging. Like there's got to be something. So MCAS, MCAS, is a syndrome characterized by inappropriate or excess mast cell activation. So this is leading to symptoms in multiple organs. So that's what it's called. And this reminds me of long haul and chronic fatigue. And we're just calling it this, and we're not getting to the root cause, and we're not doing anything about it that like we actually need to do, which sometimes is just limbic system work and vagal nerve support. But so MCAS is overactive mast cells. And these are where you're going to have this kind of garbage bin of symptoms in the skin, just like we talked about hives, flushing, rashes, dermatographia is common. In the gut, we're going to have food reactions. We're going to call it another name. IBS, we're just going to call it things so we can prescribe pharmaceuticals. No, we're not. Nausea, diarrhea, the brain, you can get anxiety and brain fog and migraines and insomnia. From the heart, the cardiovascular system, palpitations, dizziness, POTS, respiratory congestion, wheezing. So guess what? I named all these different organ systems. People are going to be sent to a different specialist for everything. That's crazy. Or they're going to be sent to a functional doctor that can't prescribe anything, because sometimes you need medications and you need to do testing that you have to do with a medical license. So this is where it gets kind of crazy and people get misguided. So this can also be confusing because we have mast cells everywhere. So sometimes the symptoms are super random. Sometimes you might go to someone and I think you're making it up, or they're just chasing the symptoms and say, let's match a symptom, not with a drug, but a botanical. I've seen that before too. So some people too are like overdiagnosed with MCAS. I see that a lot too. And then they like think this is like an identity for them. And then they start binging MCAS reels on Instagram and like all these people not getting better because fear can literally make your MCAS diagnosis worse. So, MCAS is actually recognized in medical literature, but usually targeted with a lot of pharmaceuticals, which can actually do harm too. So, we also like the goal is not to suppress mast cells forever. We don't want to do that. That would be like kicking out a security guard like forever just because you had one that was maybe a little bit too hypervigilant. No, you have to ask, why are these cells so reactive? Like what is going on? So, we're going to talk about mold, hormones, perimenopause, nervous system dysfunction, gut health. We're going to talk about all of those, like how those are the triggers for MCAS and why are we so reactive. So, I really want you guys to share this episode with a friend just so you get knowledge and watch part 2, and there's probably going to be a part 3 too. And any questions you guys have that you want me to bring up on those other episodes, please list below. So remember, mast cells are like smoke detectors, okay? A healthy smoke detector is going to say, there's a fire. We have an alarm. You need to know. But the problem is, these mast cells can get sensitized and confused. So then anything is setting off the alarm, like perfume, or for women, ovulation, even just a little bit of stress, or sometimes leftover histamine in the foods. That's going to cause an alarm. So we will go through what root causes are for this and what you can do in this series. Please subscribe, comment below. So grateful for all of you. And I'm so glad that I got to record this and share with you guys.